Hello, my name is Scarlett. I am a A-level student. I study history, English lit, and politics, and today I am going to be talking to you about Othello and Iago. Mainly their relationship, how I view it, my opinions, my thoughts, my feelings, and kind of just explaining how I feel about them, kind of as characters and how I view their relationship. This is my opinion.
That's my opinion!
I'm not gonna push my opinions and my biases and my thoughts and feelings onto anyone else. If you see me looking upwards for a bit, that's because my script is there. It might actually be easier to get it up on my phone and just have it there, but then I'm just gonna be scrolling, so I'm reading the script because I wrote it as soon as I got back from school, and I kind of just want to speak about this, have a place where I can talk about English lit and my love for it, and specifically my thoughts and feelings and opinions on certain things when it comes to English lit and stuff. I've tried to film this for the past hour, but obviously you can tell the sun's really bright. I tried to film it over there and you could just hear cars in the background. I tried to film it on my laptop and the quality was horrible, and my mic wasn't working for one of it, so I was filming it for 10 minutes and it didn't pick up, but we move on. And yeah. When most people read Othello, they see it as a tragedy and about jealousy mainly. A noble general is manipulated into believing his wife has betrayed him. Jealousy grows, truth collapses, and by the end of the play, everything is destroyed, right? But if we look closely, something strange begins to appear. The emotional center of the play may not be the marriage between Othello and Desdemona. Instead, the most intense relationship in the play might actually be between Othello and the man who betrays him, Iago. Iago watches Othello constantly. He studies his emotions, he predicts his reactions, he manipulates his perceptions, and most disturbingly, he becomes the person Othello trusts above anyone else in the world. At one of the most dramatic moments in the play, Iago kneels beside Othello and declares, "I am your own forever." It's a line that feels unusually intense. Not just loyalty, not just friendship, but something deeper. For centuries, critics have debated whether Shakespeare intentionally created homoerotic undertones in the relationship between these two men. Not necessarily romantic love in a modern sense, but a bond filled with emotional dependency, jealousy, admiration, and possessiveness. A relationship so powerful that it ultimately destroys everything around it. One of the strangest aspects of the play is that Iago's motives are never fully convincing. Not for the audience, and not for particular characters. At the beginning of the play, he claims he hates Othello because Othello promotes Cassio instead of him. Iago complains, "I know my price, I'm worth no worse a place." He believes he deserved the promotion, but if this were truly the main reason for his revenge, his plan would not need to be so elaborate. Instead, Iago constructs an incredibly complicated scheme that involves manipulating nearly every character in the play. He deceives Rodrigo for money, he manipulates his wife Emilia into stealing Desdemona's handkerchief, and most importantly, he slowly destroys Othello psychologically. The scale of his revenge raises a question. Why does Iago care so deeply about Othello's emotional life? Why devote so much time to studying his thoughts and reactions? The answer may lie in how closely Iago observes Othello's personality. At one point, Iago explains exactly how Othello's minds work. The Moor is of a free and open nature, that thinks men honest that but seem to be so. This line reveals something fascinating. Iago understands Othello psychologically immediately. He knows how easily Othello trusts people, he knows how strongly Othello values honor, and he knows exactly how to exploit these qualities. But this knowledge suggests something else. Iago has been watching Othello carefully for a really long time. One of the most famous phrases in the play is the nickname Othello gives to Iago, honest Iago. The phrase appears repeatedly throughout the play. Othello says it again and again. A man he is of honesty and trust. This fellow's of exceeding honesty. Honest Iago that looks stead without grieving. The repetition is striking. Every time Othello uses the phrase, the audience feels the tragic irony, because we know that Iago is lying constantly. But the repetition also reveals something about Othello's emotional reliance on him. Whether Othello is confused or uncertain, he turns to Iago for guidance. Iago becomes a person who interprets reality for him, and gradually, Othello begins to trust Iago more than anyone else, even more than Desdemona. One of the most interesting aspects of the play is the language Othello uses when speaking to Iago. At one point, Othello says, "Now art thou my lieutenant." This promotion is significant. It places Iago physically and socially closer to Othello. But more importantly, their conversations become increasingly private and intense. Iago often positions himself as Othello's closest confidant. When Othello begins to suspect Desdemona, he turns immediately to Iago. He tells him, "Give me the ocular proof." This moment reveals something important. Othello needs Iago's validation. He wants Iago to confirm his fears, and Iago uses that trust to deepen Othello's emotional dependence. The most famous interaction between Othello and Iago occurs in Act 3, Scene 3, often called the temptation scene. This scene is the turning point of the entire play. At the beginning of the scene, Othello still trusts Desdemona, but by the end of it, Iago has planted the seeds of jealousy that will destroy everything. The scene contains one of the most famous warnings in Shakespeare. "Oh, beware, my lord, of jealousy. It is the green-eyed monster which doth mock the meat it feeds on." The warning appears to be helpful, but in reality, it is a manipulation. By pretending to warn Othello about jealousy, Iago actually encourages it. He slowly guides Othello towards suspicion, then towards certainty, then towards rage. But the most fascinating moment in the scene happens at the end. Othello swears revenge. He kneels, Iago kneels beside him, and together they swear an oath. Othello declares, "Now by yond marble heaven, in the due reverence of a sacred vow, I here engage my words." Then Iago responds, "I am your own forever." Critics often note how this scene resembles a wedding ceremony. Two people kneeling, swearing loyalty, binding themselves together in a shared purpose. And from that moment forward, Iago becomes the person who controls Othello's emotional world. To understand why this moment matters, we can look at the work of Eve. Eve studied relationships between men in literature and introduced the concept of homosocial desire. This concept describes relationships between men that involve intense emotional bonds. These bonds may include admiration, rivalry, jealousy, loyalty, and emotional dependence. Women in these stories often function as intermediaries. They become the objects that allow emotional conflicts between men to unfold. In Othello, Desdemona plays exactly this role. She becomes the focus of jealousy, but the emotional struggle is really between Othello and Iago. If we look at the play from this perspective, Desdemona's role becomes strangely secondary. She is innocent, and she loves Othello sincerely, yet she is gradually pushed out of Othello's emotional world. Meanwhile, Iago moves closer and closer to the center of that world. Whether Othello feels uncertain, he turns to Iago. Whenever he seeks reassurance, he listens to Iago. By the final acts of the play, Iago's voice has completely replaced Desdemona's, and that emotional transfer is what makes the tragedy possible. One of the most disturbing aspects of the play is how thoroughly Iago reshapes Othello's mind. Early in the play, Othello speaks calmly and confidently, but as Iago's influence grows, Othello's language changes. His speech becomes more fragmented, more violent, more obsessive, and at one point Othello cries out, "Farewell the tranquil mind, farewell content." This line marks the moment when Iago's manipulation has fully taken hold. Othello's inner peace is gone, and from that moment forward, Iago controls the emotional direction of the tragedy. Many critics have noticed how intensely focused Iago is on Othello. Literary critic Stanley Edgar Hyman argued that Othello's hatred may conceal a deeper emotional attachment. In this interpretation, Iago both admires and resents Othello. He envies Othello's power and charisma, but he also feels drawn to him. That mixture of admiration and resentment creates a form of obsession. Iago cannot ignore Othello. He must control him. At the end of the play, everything collapses. The truth is revealed. Othello realizes he has been manipulated. Desdemona is dead, and Iago is finally exposed. When Othello demands an explanation, Iago responds, "Demand me nothing. What you know, you know. From this time forth, I never will speak a word." The silence is deeply unsettling. Why does Iago refuse to explain himself? Some critics believe Shakespeare intentionally leaves the question unanswered because the mystery of Iago's motives is part of what makes the play so powerful. In the end, the relationship between Othello and Iago remains one of the most disturbing relationships in all of literature. It contains trust, admiration, manipulation, jealousy, obsession, and betrayal. And at the center of that relationship is a line that sounds almost like a devotion. "I am your own forever." A vow that binds the two men together and ultimately destroys them both. Thank you so much for listening to my little ramble. The script didn't really take me that long. I might be lying. It's 3 o'clock, I finished school at 12. But I hope that was helpful. I hope that gives you kind of some more opinions and thoughts and feelings on the matter of homosexuality and homoeroticism within Shakespeare, Othello specifically, but hopefully that gives you guys some clarity. It shows you some views and my thoughts and opinions, and I'm also happy to do more on Othello and other Shakespearean plays and other literary texts actually, and be able to share my thoughts and my feelings and my interpretations on them. So thank you so much for watching, and I will hopefully, potentially, see you in another video where I am rambling endlessly. I can't even speak anymore. Rambling endlessly about literary and specifically homosexuality within literature. So